here at the fourcornersproject.org studio here in Beit Shemesh, Israel. And we have with us an unbelievable guest coming into the studio, coming into the Four Corners Project studio, and that is the drummer that played the most gigs with Shlock Rock in the history of Shlock Rock, Sir Roy Weinberger.
I had no idea I had that honor.
I don't know when we knighted you, but we did. You must have gone to London with us at one point and got knighted.
I think I missed that flight. But I'm glad to be here. Okay.
Judy Hertzfeld is here watching as our associate producer from the other side of the glass in Clifton, New Jersey. Judy, can you hear us? Is the sound working? Let me get a thumbs up from you so we know.
Long time no Judy.
It's taking a long time for that to happen. But let's assume. She wrote "got it now," so I think it could be that it's working. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Special effects. My cell phone has never gone off in the middle of a show. And
neither is mine because I turned it off first. That's why.
I'm about to turn it off. What excitement! What excitement, Roy!
Didn't I ever tell you the exciting story of my first recording session?
No, we're going to get into that.
Now, right.
But we have a lot of stuff to get into because, ladies and gentlemen, Roy Weinberger has had an illustrious career spanning, I don't want to say how many decades, but let's just say he's been playing music.
More than one.
Yes, and he's been playing business for a long time, playing music for a long time. He's going to tell us all about that, and that's why we interview all of our band members. You know that you are the 15th interview we have interviewed. I actually have it here. Let me just see if I can find it.
You never could hold a band together, could you?
But we have interviewed the entire... Okay, we got a yes from Judy, so we are being heard.
Yay.
Oh, crud. The phone is ringing. They all want to talk. They all want to talk to Roy.
You've had more members than Guns N' Roses. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, no, we have not had more members than Guns N' Roses.
That's pretty close.
It'd be a nice thing. I'm not sure we would be doing this live stream if we had more members than Guns N' Roses. Although you never know.
Fans. I said band members, not fans.
Oh, we have had more band members than Guns N' Roses. Yes, we have. Now, so here's the story. As we all know, the fans out there know, Shlock Rock started off. We have the Wolves are checking in from the 5 towns, actually from Philadelphia. No, this is from, I think.
No, they're
anyway. Hello, Wolves.
They're in Cedarhurst.
They're in Cedarhurst.
REA is one of my students.
All
He's
right.
a wonderful human being and an amazing young drummer. Amazing.
Right, and Roy, you are teaching drums, but that's the end of the story. Let's first go to the beginning of the story. In the beginning of the story, why don't we tell the audience when you started learning music, what were your instruments? Did you start with the drums, or was the drums a secondary instrument? And ukulele?
No, I learned that during the pandemic. It's like I worked on flute, I worked on clarinet, I worked on ukulele, I worked on recorder. I just the choice of being unemployed. But
you're telling me? I have done 96 Lenny Solomon lives. That's what I've done. This is the 96th one since last June. We've done 96.
Wow, I should have waited for 100. Should have held out for triple digits.
Well, we're going to the 100th. The 100th show might be next week. It might be, and I might wait until after Pesach.
Oh, okay.
Because we want to make it a big extravaganza.
A big one. There's a lot of screens. So, musically? I started out with a dad who sang all over the place. When he was young, he was a professional singer. And even sang in the Gilbert and Sullivan Light Opera Company of San Francisco, and he toured the country, which I found out about 5 years before he passed away. He finally got around to you're going to Washington? Yeah, I remember when I played there. It's like, what, Dad? Wait, you're telling hello, we had a lifetime together, and you're getting around to telling me now that you toured. Nice. So anyway, but he gave up professional singing in his 20s. After World War II, he sang a little while longer. For a little while, he was even in the band, I think they're called the High Lows. They went on to sing, I think, with Glenn Miller. They did 6-part harmonies, and he said, but I was really in over my head. But he would sing around the house, and music was always around. And he brought us to Broadway shows and to off-Broadway shows and to concerts that were playing in the area. And so, music was there. So my first impressions were listening to, we're singing Al Jolson songs, because that's what we had lying around the house, and Danny Kaye.
That's unbelievable. That's really unbelievable.
I haven't come far from that, it's only been but anyway, so somewhere in 4th grade, at one point in the general music class, somebody walked in and said, the school band needs some drummers. Does anybody here want to learn drums? And I had never thought about it. Oh, wait, I lost the effect. Wait. Here,
there you are. Now you were off camera. Okay. I know the camera was off camera, but now, so you raised your hand and you started playing drums.
I played drums. 2 weeks later, I was in the school band doing double stroke rolls and multiple bounce rolls and reading rhythms as best I could. And so it was years and years of learning about music, and then going to as many concerts. By the time I was in junior high school, I was going to rock concerts and blues concerts and southern rock concerts and just a variety of things. By high school, I was progressive jazz, jazz rock, rock jazz, hard rock, blues rock, just everything. When I, in retrospect, when I look back at some of the tunes and bands that I followed, it was an incredibly eclectic variety of music. From folk music and blues and southern rock and hard rock and country rock and jazz influenced rock. And I got into a band called Mahavishnu Orchestra at one point, and then I went into, some of the members had played with Miles Davis earlier in their career. And that got me listening to Miles Davis and in his electric phase, like Tribute to Jack Johnson. And the next thing I know...
This is not the Jack Johnson that was just placed on waivers by the New York Rangers, of course.
No. But it was a good guess. So
wait, let's fast forward, Roy. I want to bring us to the to when you start. When did you tell me playing with Joey D and the Starlighters?
Okay.
How many bands before that did you play with before you got to Joey D and then the Soft Parade? Because before we get to Shlock Rock, we're going to talk about the things that you did before Shlock Rock. Let's call it BS. Before Shlock.
Okay. I'm not touching that. So
good move.
There were... I have to look at some of my old resumes to remember, because I'm always looking at what I'm doing and what I'm going to be doing in the future more than the past. But
this is a reminiscing show. We're reminiscing.
Going up to that, I played with Pops Orchestra for a bunch of years, and opera and symphony concerts. I had worked on cruise ships and in the Catskills, backing acts. I had worked with some national jazz acts. I'd done some concerts and some nationally known classical artists. And I had moved back to the New York area and was picking up work. So I played like Tiny Tim, and I backed the Belmonts, from Dion and the Belmonts.
Oh, yes, I remember you talking about that. Yes.
So I was playing with some of those acts, and I was freelancing, doing private parties, and pushing myself, doing some recordings for original acts, and doing performances with people trying to get signed with national labels. And I got a call. Somebody had passed my name along to Joey D, and I got a phone call his wife was helped manage the band. She goes, well, heard about you, and we heard a lot of nice things. We'd like to come down to audition. We've got some touring going on. I said, yeah, sure. So she said, we'll be in touch with you soon. I said, great. A week went by, 2 weeks went by, about a month went by, and I said, well, I guess whatever happened is a little frustrating. I had no contact number for them.
It's hard when these things happen. It's very hard because you're waiting on Spilkas. You're waiting there, waiting for that call. Now,
so anyway, another phone call came in, and this time same person. She goes, "So are you still interested in the band?" I said, "Yeah, sure." I said, "Well, come down. We want to play with you and see." Okay, went down, played with them. They hired me, and immediately went on the road. Within a week or two, and backed. And then one night, I was backing up the Coasters, Carl Gardner and the Coasters. I was backing Joey D and backing Paul Roby and the Platters.
So these are 50s bands. These are 50s
50s
bands
in the early 60s, yeah.
Right, 50s and 60s bands going on tour and doing kind of like musical reviews, or actually their greatest hits. But the bands were all on the same ticket, and people would come, and one band would leave, the next band would come. But you were playing drums for all of them.
All three that night. So it was like an 8,000 seat amphitheater in Georgia.
That's unbelievable.
And so it meant I met them in the afternoon. I ran through their shows, the Platters and the Coaster shows, took a break for dinner, and came out and played the concert. During the concert, one of my favorite stories in life was the musical director for the Platters, while the leader's up front and doing a little spiel and talking a little about the history of the Platters. Well, you know when the Platters began, and we're here. So he's doing like about a 4-minute talk, and the piano player, the musical director, he kind of like saunters over, and he kind of goes like, "Yo, man, where you from? You play good." And that just carries me to this day.
It's a great story.
I've had a few like that. And so and within the next couple of weeks, we had a whole bunch of gigs backing Joey and backing other acts. And along the way, I found out what had happened. So they tried to go cheap. So they went with a younger, less experienced drummer because they could save like $50 a night on salary.
Yeah, listen, it's very interesting. And that's a lesson for everybody out there. You get what you pay for. You do.
Listen very carefully. He almost blew it. So what happened is they had a ton of gigs booked where Joey D was going to be on the bandstand, but because to save money, a lot of acts would fly into these concerts and leave their band home, or just bring maybe a musical director and use a single backing band. So I was going to be, whoever was the drummer with Joey D was going to be the drummer and to back up all these other acts, a ton of acts. And what they found out, this kid couldn't cut it. So he played so badly that the booking agent wanted to blow off like 30 or 40 gigs.
There's the lesson. The lesson is you cannot go cheap when it comes to this stuff. You can't. And so the rest is history. You're hired, and you spent a lot of years with Joey D and playing backup drummer or for these bands. Now I want to move because we've already done around 15 minutes and we haven't even gotten to Shlock Rock yet.
I got no place to go. What's the problem? Wait, you missed out the best part. Because while doing those acts, I got to play with 14 acts who are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Wow.
And that's something.
That's big. That's
I thought so.
I mean, even you're going to say, oh, what'll it take?
Even you didn't play with 14, actually.
I'm impressed. Now, I, of course, have played with a lot of Jewish Rock and Roll Hall of Famers, but we haven't built the building yet. Okay, so let's talk about, let's spend around 3-4 minutes on the Soft Parade. The Soft Parade happened before and during when you were playing with Shlock Rock. That was.
Yes.
We're about to hit Shlock Rock. We're going to hit Shlock Rock in around 3 minutes, everybody.
So
So the Soft Parade, by the way, for everybody that does not know, is a Doors cover band.
referred to as a tribute band because they use a clothing style, costuming, and very precise instruments that are representative of the late 1960s, early 1970s. So everything is very much trying to recreate the look and the sound, the music of the Doors. And that was an interesting gig also because to share with the audience, my wife is from Europe, and when we were dating, one time I flew over to Europe and was visiting with her, walking through Cologne in Germany, and I saw a poster for this act. So this act, the Soft Parade, they were playing like a week or so after Ringo Starr, was playing the same venue. And I go, wow, I didn't know this. They were a nationally touring act. I went home in a few days. I opened up the Village Voice, which was the go-to paper for getting a gig in those days. And I see they're looking for a drummer. So I call him up. I say, excuse me, is this the same band? Are you playing to Germany in June? I go, yeah, that's where we need the drummer to do the tour. I think, well, you got my interest. So I put together, they wanted an audition tape. I did an audition tape. I sent it in. They hired me. I had 4 days or 5 days to rehearse, and then flew over to do a 2-week tour.
You did many years with them. I mean, you did.
I did. I'm no longer with them. That's another story. We may not want to do that on this show.
But nothing's happening right now anyway. So
yeah. So
if you say, I was taking a look at the last 6-7 years of Shlock Rock's touring. I mean, we with the COVID thing, I have performed twice this entire year, and both in Israel. So,
yeah,
it's true you're not with them, but they're not with them either. I don't think that they're touring either. I mean, I don't know, but
we should talk about Shlock Rock.
But let's get to Shlock Rock, because what's very, very interesting about Shlock Rock is, as we all know, Gary Wallen was the #1 drummer in Shlock Rock. He started with us, and by '92, we had a very, very big gig coming up. It was the opening ceremonies of the Maccabi games at the Baltimore Civic Center. Now, Mark Skyer, the bass player, had already left the band, and Dave Hirsch had replaced him. Dave Hirsch recommended you because I was in South Africa. Gary was going to front the band. So, in other words, the biggest gig of Shlock Rock's career, and I'm not there. And we had tried one person that Gary couldn't work with for whatever reason, and Dave said, "Why don't we try Roy?" Now, Dave Hirsch had known you, I guess, going back to the days of I think Binghamton, but I don't even know.
No, we had. I'm not sure if we originally met on an original project with their. So we had a friend that had an original project, and he was a percussionist and a drummer, but he brought me in on certain gigs to play drum set, so he would just play percussion. And I think, I'm not sure if that might be how I originally know Dave from, but yeah, Dave brought me in. I don't make anywhere near the top echelon of drummers in the world, but sometimes it just felt like it was like from that line from MASH, the pros from Dover. Sometimes it just felt like, okay, let's read for the red phone, and I get a call like, we need this in 2 days or 3 days, or can you be on a plane tomorrow? And a couple of times in my life, I've had those situations, and it's really was a wonderful feeling. It was great. I had 1 or 2 rehearsals with the band.
Right. And then you went live, and it was fabulous. It was a fabulous show. It was 14,000 people at the Baltimore Civic Center, or the Baltimore for the opening ceremonies of the Maccabi games in 1992. And that was your first gig with Shlock Rock. And then as Gary became his own band leader, you slid in. Well, first we had Mike Roth, and Mike was the #1 drummer for a while, and then you came in as the #1 guy, and played. I don't easily over 100 gigs with us, easily, maybe more.
It's possible.
I think
I
maybe
think
a
it's.
couple of. I think actually a couple of hundred gigs. You know,
I
if
think it's
we would actually
reasonable to assume.
do the numbers. Okay, before we're gonna continue in a minute. I just want to do a little bit of what's the word paperwork. So first thing is, if you're watching from Facebook, give us a thumbs up, leave a comment. If you're watching from YouTube, either on the Shlock Rock or the Four Corners channel, hit like, subscribe, and leave a comment. If you're watching on Twitter at Lenny Solomon, retweet it around. In our first 95 shows, we've had over 95,000 views. We were averaging approximately 1,005 views per show, but we need your help. So go to fourcornersproject.org, leave a donation for the year, small donation, anything you want, and so on and so forth. And we're going to play a little bit of trivia right now. This is called commercial trivia. Everybody out there, I want you to tell me which 4 brands had these sayings. You ready? First one. Now, Roy, you can't give the answer because we're waiting for the audience. The audience is gonna give in. Here we go.
Okay, I won't give it away.
Number 1, plop plop fizz fizz. Oh, what a relief it is. What brand is that advertising? Number 2, I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. All right, that's number 2. Number 3, there's something about blank blank. A man wants to smell like a man. What brand is that? And finally, ring around the collar. What gets rid of ring around the collar? Okay, that was the hardest one, by the way. I don't know if people are going to remember that. Do you know all 4?
I'm not. Maybe the last one. I'm not positive.
The last one is hard. The last one is very hard.
You
But
know,
these
Lenny, I was
are all
hoping.
commercials from the 1970s.
I was hoping this was going to be one of the high points of my career. I'm not.
You're not so sure anymore.
It's a gamble right now.
I know. But listen, that's the best part. Yesterday, I did a whole Name That Tune on the Eagles. So where I played. Oh, Judy Hertzfeld brought in 2 of them already. Judy Hertzfeld got 2 of those.
Those are correct.
2 of the 4 are correct. What about number 3 and 4? Number 3 and 4 are not so easy. There's something about blank blank blank. A man wants to smell like a man. And yes, Judy gets number 4, ring around the collar. Yes, she's got number 4. So the only one we're missing is number 3. The hint that I'm going to give you for number 3 is that Pete Rose is in that commercial. Pete Rose in the 1970s, along with Mel from Mel's Diner, which was a sitcom in the 70s. Okay.
Gamblers Anonymous?
No, not Gamblers. Was he a gambler? I don't even know. All right. So wait.
Now you won't find him in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. Okay, so that was our trivia thing, our trivia contest for the day. Make sure you put your answers in. Let's go on now to 1995. Now, 1995, Roy, you already are starting to play with us on a regular basis, and you appeared on your first Shlock Rock album. You were the drummer on that album. Do you remember the album and what it was called?
I'll take nostalgia for 60. I think it was called Woodschlock. Was that the one?
1995. Okay. You were the drummer for Woodschlock, which we did at Grandpa Studios with Mick Cantarella, which was in Brooklyn. And we had some great hits on that album. I mean, Let's Go to the Shul, 49 Days to Count the Omer, where you got to be Steve Gadd. Yes, Judy just got it. All right, but it's not exact, but it's close. All right, so you also got to play with Mo Shapiro on guitar, Dave Hirsch on bass. We had a horn section of Dave Bogner, Jordan Hirsch, and Mike Cohen. It was a really fun album. Woodschlock was a really fun album. And that was the first of a number of albums that you played with us. Although you were on J-Rap City in 2005. You played all drums on 4 of the bonus tracks. Okay. You also appeared live at JMTV when we played at Liberty. That was an unbelievable That was an
Was
unbelievable.
that a Renaissance festival?
Yes, the Jewish Renaissance Fair in Morristown, New Jersey. But instead of it being in Morristown, New Jersey, it was at Liberty Park, Liberty State Park,
Yeah.
overlooking the Twin Towers. If you remember, we have footage of
Video.
us performing, and you see actually planes going past the Twin Towers. It's kind of surreal, that whole, and also the weather was terrible, and we had to hope we didn't get electrocuted. You know, kind of the part of the business for us schlockers is that you just got to do what you got to do, you know.
Part of where the word schlock comes from.
Right. You did not want to have a gig canceled. You really didn't.
That's right.
You wanted to work. You wanted to make a living.
Didn't want to disappoint the fans.
No, God forbid. So, but you did tons of shows. I want you to name off the top of your head, if you can do this, and if you can't, I've got a couple in mind.
Okay.
Name one of the great shows that you think that or great experiences you had on the road with Shlock Rock, because you were on the road with me a lot. You were also on the road with Eitan G a lot, with Mo Shapiro. Tell me, is there any city that rings a bell or that evokes memories?
So, I loved the gig at Louisville, Kentucky.
That was the one. That was my gig. That was the first one I was going to say.
There's a gentleman there who worked in the bakery department in the back of like a Kmart or something, who all like no windows, like in a box, and he baked all day long.
Yes.
And he listened to Shlock Rock music all the time when he was in his little box cooking, and he came to the show and he was nothing but positive energy. Yes. And the fact that the music gave him the joy in his little workspace all day long, it was just so touching. So that was really special. And of course, we hit the baseball bat factory in the afternoon.
Because how could you not go to the Louisville Slugger Bat Factory? You're in Louisville, Kentucky. You go to the Louisville Slugger Bat Factory for a tour.
I still have the freebies they hand out. They have the little baseball bats.
The little baseball bats, yes.
Little ones.
But that was fabulous.
And
it was such a cool memory. It was.
It was great. And it was even cool to find out that there were Jews in Kentucky. So that was reassuring.
That's the story of Shlock Rock, which is that we went to places. People say there were Jews in Birmingham, Alabama. There were Jews in Omaha, Nebraska. Yes, there are. Yeah. And we played
Kansas City, and so the favorite memory was we were at Lana's house in Ohio. Was it
Columbus, Ohio?
So we had a gig the next day. Well, on Saturday night or Sunday, but
it was Saturday night. It was after Shabbat, right?
So it was the gig, but it was Thursday night, and it was a snowstorm and ice storm to end all snowstorms and ice storms, and our plane was canceled. So It was early Friday morning. How do we get to St. Louis or Louis, Missouri?
Right.
Well, we rented a car. To drive in the remnants. Luckily, it ended, but the remnants of the most horrific ice storm in decades, and the trees were crystalline and unbelievably gorgeous. Luckily, there were like no other cars in the road, so if we slid, there's nothing to run into because nobody was stupid enough to be on the highway but us. And we were like timing how many miles, when's the sun going to get down, because it was Friday, and we're rushing, we're doing the best we can, we're trying not to die, and it was gorgeous, but it was scary. And we see the arches in St. Louis, and we get to the house, and from the weight of the ice, a tree the night before or that morning had smashed into the house, but we're still welcome as guests. And of course, I got the bedroom with a tree over my head, which was fine for Friday night and for Shabbos. but and then we I had a friend in town who came to the gig and came over to the house for Saturday night and said I'm getting back on Sunday. And then it got warmer on Sunday, so then they found out the cracks in the roof. So it was like leaking and dripping on the bed because the snow and ice started melting from the cracks in the roof from the tree. And that part I was happy to leave. But
I remember that. That was first thing is Lana Covell, who's in the Shlock Rock Hall of Fame posthumously. She passed away around 3 years ago. But she was the greatest person. She always opened up her house to us, although there were so many people that did that. I mean, Maureen Ash in Rochester. I don't want to just name other names, but we everywhere we went, there was somebody that opened up their house, and we had the greatest time, and we made friends, and not only that, we got to play music. Because is there anything better than playing music, Roy? There isn't.
No, well, so I have a degree in music and a degree in math, and so the joke always, I used the degree in math to figure out how little money I made playing music, but I could never have more fun, never had more fulfilling experience than being appreciated for what I did, giving joy, giving education. How can you put it into words? It's just I didn't care. I was happy. I made a living, and I made people happy, and they made me happy.
Yeah,
and it kept me physically fit. So it was good coming. So there's an extra.
Well, you always took care of yourself, as opposed to myself, who might go a Hanukkah tour with 600 latkes. Eitan G was always going with the protein, and I was going with the anti-protein. But anyway, the funny thing is that what we have in common that I didn't 100% know is that my degree is in accounting, so it's also music and math. Yours is music and math, and the Ramchal is a famous rabbi from the 1600s. Says that music and math are on the same plane. They're on the same spiritual plane, because the whole concept of a song is synchronicity, where you start off on the tonic, you go to the fifth. The tonic means whatever your key you're in. You go to the fifth of the chord, and you end up back to the tonic. And how you get there, but you have to zero out, and zeroing out is that song, is playing a song. And in math and in accounting especially, you want to have a zero balance. You want to make sure that, I don't want to say you want to have zero money in the bank, but what you want to have is that there's no outstanding numbers that don't work. You want the numbers to work. And so
that was the accounting side. So, and from the math side, we have the counting of rhythms, and then we have the harmonic, we have the overtone series,
right,
which is also mathematical, and the fact that if you take a note length or a wavelength and you cut it in half, and how that affects the pitch, and it's all for vibration. Vibration is the counting of rhythms, the vibration. A440 is 440 vibrations. So they're keenly related. Yeah, we drove through an ice storm. Want to make something of it? So
that's my sister, by the way. You drove through an ice storm? Of course, we drove through an ice storm.
It was a pip.
We did whatever we had to do to make the gig. We always did, whether it meant getting up at 3 a.m. and going to the airport by 4 because we had a 6 o'clock in the morning flight, and you had to be there 2 hours early. I mean, how many times did we do that, Roy? I can't even count.
Do you remember a gig we drove to in Syracuse?
Yes.
Snowstorm.
Oh, yes. It was unbelievable.
I'm sitting there. I'm sitting there doing the travel prayers. I'm reading the travel prayers. I've got my head glued to the window to try to make sure. Wait, are we still on the road? Can I see anything that tells us we're on the road or we're leaving the road?
But we
were
made that gig.
2 hours late, 3 hours late, and they hung in there at some community center. And we kept calling in.
Gosh.
It's like, okay, we're an hour outside of Binghamton. We're a half hour. We're 30 miles from Binghamton. Okay, we're 30 miles outside of Syracuse. We were 2 or 3 hours late, and they hung in there. It was And it was great.
Had,
It is.
we
It
had
was
a
what
lot
it
of
was.
stories. We had a lot of stories, and we rarely had a postponement. We rarely had a postponement.
I don't remember
And
one.
you remember we did the. Now we're really reminiscing, but I remember the 16 shows in 19 days for Nefesh B'Nefesh, where you were on this. You were on that tour with us: Kansas City, St. Louis, Omaha.
Is that Nashville? Was that the
No,
Nashville one
Nashville
also?
was a different tour. We did Nashville, Atlanta, Charlotte, and Wilmington, North Carolina, then Baltimore, and then back to New York. But that was crazy. We did 16 hours in one day. We drove 16 hours in one day from New York to Nashville. Kind of makes you crazy.
There's the explanation. There's the excuse.
Yeah, it was back in 2012, by the way. That was 2012. But those were, I would like to say those were the days. There were, obviously it's not the most fun in terms of being on the road, let's say 8-hour drives or 16-hour drives or 10-hour drives. But the funny thing is that when I spoke to Evan and Jaron, who had the top 10 hit in 2000, they told me that for 23 months, they would get into a bus and drive 20 hours to the next gig. They would just go one gig to the next, 20 hours in a bus. And we never got to that point, thank God. We never got. I mean, I don't know, maybe you would have wanted to, but I think our way of touring was much better. I would love to have some sort of tour when this COVID thing goes away. Who knows?
I'm open.
You're there, huh? Roy is there.
The story to me, is when you hear the words in the Jackson Browne song about the only time, the story, but I can't think of the lyrics. Is the time we get to play. When he talks about don't kick us, please don't kick us off the stage. The audience is gone. I know we need to pack up, but let us have a few more minutes on the stage, because the only time
is that the
we
song
have
about
fun.
the roadie? That's the song about the roadie, isn't it? Let the roadie take the stage, right?
Yeah.
Listen,
it's a real deal. Is that it's all worth it for the time. It was all worth it. Always worth it. Just for the time to have that, because it was so enjoyable. It was worth all the Michigas to get there. And I've gone to Miami for one night. I've gone to South America to do 2 concerts.
That's more than me. We've never played. Shlock Rock has never played South America.
You missed the continent?
The closest we came. Yeah, the closest we
because
came.
The Rangers don't play there. That's
Acapulco and Mexico City.
Okay.
Mexico City. That's the closest I've come. And
Very
San
close.
Juan. I did a wedding in San Juan in the early 80s. And that was pre-Shlock. Rock. That was with Jordan Hirsch leading the band, or Avi Meza.
Okay.
Avi Meza, Jordan Hirsch leading the band. That was one of the great experiences. That was just an unbelievable experience. But the Central America, South America. I was right. Adina Wolf's Shimon is my. Okay, there we go. Coming in. Oh,
Sister
Adina, you're married to Eliyahu. Send regards to Eliyahu. Oh yeah. And you lived in an 8315. Of course I know you. Kew Gardens, ladies and gentlemen. I come from Kew Gardens, New York, although now we're in Beit Shemesh, as you know. Roy, we have broken the record. We're at 38 minutes. We have broken the record of interview with a band member. Once again, you have done the longest, the most gigs with any Shlock Rock band, with the Shlock Rock band, and you have also now done the longest interview out of all the band members. This is unbelievable.
38 minutes is the longest?
39 minutes. Usually it's a 30-minute interview. You don't want to overdo it, so I mean, we usually do 33, 34, but now we're about to hit 40 minutes. I just want to let's bring the interview to a close. I
gotta be clear. I talked more than Eitan G.
Yeah, but Eitan G was the first interview, so he would.
Oh, you're okay.
We were kind of. If we get him around for a second time, I'm sure he'll just go on for an hour.
Okay, you confused me. I was really confused there for a second, but that explains it.
Now let's close out a little bit by you telling everybody what you're doing now, because I know that you're a famous drum teacher. You have a lot of students. As a matter of fact, Adina Wolf writes, My son Aryeh, or our son, is lucky enough to be a proud student of Roy. So there you go. Tell us a little bit about that part and any other things that you're working on.
Okay. So things were slowing down in the performance field about 5 years ago. So I had been teaching, as you know, for more than 15 years privately and teaching in music camps. I got more heavily into studying the art of teaching and started substitute teaching for New York City Department of Education. I started working for nonprofits in New York City and doing programs for them, doing assemblies for them, either as an actor or as a musician. And I went into classrooms and I started studying pedagogy from Carl Orff. He has his own pedagogy, which teaches music to children. Started picking up some work at a particular school through a nonprofit as a school conductor, as a second music teacher. So I was teaching instruments, clarinet, trumpet, saxophone, drums, but I was conducting the band, which I really love doing. And so that's what I was doing when COVID hit, is I had this wonderful situation in a middle school where I was conducting and helping teach instruments and doing some general music classes along with a second teacher. And then I would, in the middle of the day, I would run to half a mile away to this first grade class. And I was teaching 3 first grade classes and doing this really evolved. I had first graders doing 4-part harmonies. Wow. And on cannons, and I had them marching and doing movement and doing improvisation on pitched and non-pitched percussion, and then it all ended with whatever it was, March 12th or whatever it was.
No, that's why we yeah.
That's right. Exactly, so you could have called me the last year. I had a lot of time. So now people took their time coming back this year. So I just did more time trying to make myself a better musician and learning how to market myself to schools. Because what I'm hoping is to get I thought it was Old Spice also, trying to get a teaching position in a school where I get to conduct or run a percussion ensemble or Orff ensemble or teach world music. And that's where a lot of my time and effort has been. So I'm teaching drums, I'm teaching alto saxophone. I don't have any clarinet students or recorder students now, but I could teach alto, teach clarinet and teach recorder. I'm not so good on flute, but I can teach beginner flute players, beginner piano players.
Wow. Very interesting.
It's so wonderful to take somebody, because I can remember, because I didn't play piano until I went to college, and as a music major, one day the graduate student said, as a music major, you have to play piano. It's like, wait a minute, I'm a drummer. It's like, no. You're a music major. You have to play piano. You have to take music history. You have to do the same pedagogy, the same curriculum. You have to do the music theory classes, the musicianship classes, the sight singing, the chordal dictation, the harmonic dictation, the rhythmic dictation, which I used to bust their chops about, because if they were off by a 16th note, I'd say, "Excuse me, is that a really syncopated rhythm, or should I round it off to the music?"
In Queens College, we had it was very difficult also. Yeah, and I didn't major in music because of that. Although I took 60 something credits in music, I just didn't finish it. It was too. Who wanted to take listening exams? I mean, I couldn't do that.
The best story in college is because I failed a music history course one semester because I can't do history. So what year did Prince Esterhazy tell Haydn to like boogie or whatever? I don't know. I'm like, I don't know, 1654. I don't know. Why do I care? I mean, seriously, if I wanted to know, I'll open a book. I'll open a book and I'll look. Why do I have to have that memorized? I mean, come on, what year did Balboa sail? Come on, seriously. 15 and change. I mean, if you really want to know, you ask Siri, or you look in an encyclopedia.
Well,
I mean,
no,
it's
but
doable.
back then there was no Siri.
But they were encyclopedias. It was World Book. You could look it up. You could. So anyhow, I failed that. And the chairman of the music department sat me down in her office and said, maybe you should consider music as a hobby. Whoa!
I hate when they do. I hate when they do that.
Seriously, lady. So I mean, I played every theater and every major venue in that entire area before I left that area, and I was always sorry that I didn't get like a major concert in the Broome County Arena, because the newspaper, the critic, the fine arts critic was a fan and a good friend, and would have written. I would have told that story. It would have been front page.
All I could tell you
the
was
Weekend
like
Leisure
this,
Center.
We also had a similar story where a famous guy came to watch the band, and his words were, "The band stinks. They'll never go anywhere." Well, that wasn't
30 years later.
It's still going. It's 35 years old.
Nice.
So.
And
you want to, that was and the other thing they always would say is change the name. We don't like the name. We don't like Shlock Rock. Change the name. No, because you don't like the name. I'm going to change the name. The name is the name.
So
anyway.
I saw Eddie Murphy told the story that when he was like 19, when he was 17, and he was in Florida doing stand-up, Rodney Dangerfield comes in and goes, I don't like that blue material. Why do you have to curse so much? I don't think it's going to work for you, kid. Okay. 2 years later, this is a story Eddie Murphy told. And 2 years later, Eddie Murphy is headlining Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, and he goes to the bathroom. Who does he meet in the bathroom? Rodney Dangerfield. First words out of his mouth were like, "Who knew?" So he took a bit. So he was, "I'm sorry, you were right. Who knew? I gave the best advice I could. I was wrong. You were right. It worked for you."
At least, you know what? But it takes a man.
Yeah, it was good.
I was wrong.
Eddie Murphy.
And that means that Rodney Dangerfield had something. Because the people that bashed me in the beginning have not come over to me and said, "You know what? We were wrong." The best that I got was, "Well, this is still not the way that I would have done it, but you were a success." That's what they said. "You are a success. You are a success. You've done good things, but it's still not the way I would have done it." I got that from someone.
Marvelous. And you have accomplished a tremendous amount. You've created a mountain of history, of music, of historical interpretation of musical history, of the liturgy, of the Torah, and put it in musical terms. So as I remember when you'd go in and do a Sunday morning lesson sometimes before a concert, we'd be playing at school somewhere in Connecticut or wherever, and you would do a class and inform them like, what, so that, you may know this song, but what's behind this song? It's this holiday coming up. Before you go into the concert, let's listen to the words. Let's sing the words, but let's understand what those words are saying. So whether it's like, I got the strings of life, or whatever aspect of Judaism it was, whether it be like putting the Friday night services to Beatles songs, whatever it was, so many of the songs were teaching moments, and still are for anybody that listens to them. And that was your gift to more to the Jewish world, but I'll say to the world, but more to the Jewish world. But we're a small part of the world, so you don't sell as many records.
It was to the Jewish world. That was what it was for. It was, now we have non-Jews that listen to it as well, and they're more than welcome. But the audience, or the target audience, were the Jews scattered to the four corners of the world. So, Roy, I want to thank you for coming in, because it's been a fantastic interview. We have a lot more to talk about. We're going to have to do this again for part 2. We're going to have to do this again for part 2. But I will tell you right now, everybody out there, I want to thank Roy Weinberger for coming into the Four Corners Project studio. This Thursday, we're going to do it. Tomorrow night, we're off. And this Thursday, we're going to do show number 97. Show number 97, which is a pre-Passover concert, pre-Passover concert, because we have to play Into the Sea. We have to play the Four Questionables. And, we're getting closer to Pesach. We're getting closer to we're now 10 days away from Pesach, right? 10, 11 days. 11 days from Passover.
It's coming up fast.
It's almost time to start cleaning, but not yet. I'll tell you when to clean.
Gotta thank the Wolves. I got some extra grape juice from Mr. Wolf. They made sure I said,
very good.
I got the one. They gave me 2 extras, so I've got the Kedem up. I'm covered.
Do you have any Strites matzahs, unsalted?
Not yet.
Unsalted matzahs? It's gonna take plenty of matzah. Do it right, child.
I can tell you, I'm a like whatever's on sale matzah guy. The burnt on the bottom, it just came in. Just
go now, you can find a lot of matzahs.
It's round, it crumbles, it's black on the bottom. It's like
I love that. I love those matzahs. I love those. Those are handmade.
I don't like my pizza like
matzahs.
that. They're handmade. I appreciate the craft, the artwork in it. They taste. Do you remember my
it
Passover?
Tastes like cardboard.
Do you remember the Passover story, the goof I did with that pianist that time? Do you remember? Because a favorite Passover story is I was playing with a pops orchestra, and there was a very, very well-known DJ in the area who played upright bass and also played piano. So they brought him in to bring some of his many fans to fill up to help sell out. It was 3 concerts. We do a Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday afternoon series. Yeah. And so they brought in this gentleman, Ted Bear, who's passed away, unfortunately. Nice Jewish guy, funny as could be. So I goof on him, and it's the Sunday afternoon show. And I take a box of matzah, obviously Manischewitz, and I put it inside the grand piano, not on the soundboard, but in the corner, so it's not going to hurt the sound, but I put it where he can see it. And he comes out, ladies and gentlemen, they introduce him, the conductor, and do some applause. Blah, 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 blah. He comes in. He thanks. Oh, thank you, gentlemen. Maybe tells a joke, a little shtick. He just like an improv, whatever. Yeah. Sits down at the piano to do the first song with the Pops Orchestra. We got a 40-piece orchestra waiting, and he goes, "Wait a minute, who did this? Who did this?" And of course, there's one person, 1,500 people in the audience, 40 people on stage. One person in the entire room knows what's going on. Me. So he's going, "What? Who did this?" Okay, David, did you do this? The conductor looks at him like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, he starts like talking to this. Did you do this? He's like calling at people. He didn't call them. Did you do that? And they were like, "What are you talking about?" And then he did this improv bit on the spot. He goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is matzah. For those of you who don't know what matzah is, it's what we Jews eat during the time of Passover, which it is now. And the taste of matzah, well, if you ever lick the chalk off a blackboard, that's pretty much what the taste of matzah is like." Yeah, that's about.
Yeah.
And so he did this. Okay. He did like a 10-minute improv, and then. Did
you ever tell him?
I told him afterwards. It was great. I should have put gefilte fish. I don't know what he would have done then, but either way, that was one of my few pranks in life, but one that went very well. Anyhow, that's
all right, Roy. We better go. It's 53 minutes. You've broke. I don't think anybody's going to come close to your record.
Never ever will until I come back. Okay.
Right. Roy Weinberger, thank you for coming into the studio. We'll see you on Thursday, everybody. Keep on schlocking. Have a great next couple of days.
Happy Pesach.